Good afternoon and welcome to the 10th and final edition of the OhioX Tech Tour. My name is Chris Berry. For those that perhaps haven't joined at other stops, I'm the president of OhioX, and we're a statewide technology and innovation nonprofit partnership. Our goal and mission is to help promote, share the stories of great and interesting technology and innovation that's happening across the state of Ohio. We're joined today in our 10th and final stop, as I mentioned. We're in virtually, of course, but we're in the City of Dublin. And we're really excited to have 4 different guests from 4 different organizations and perspectives who will help share the work. But as we begin, as I mentioned, this is the 10th and final stop in our tour. We've been to cities all across Ohio, from those that are on Lake Erie in the north, all the way down to southern Ohio, to places like Cincinnati and Portsmouth on the Ohio River. And it's been a really fascinating tour and series. We've heard from leaders from big corporations, startups, from universities, from all sorts of different organizations with really different perspectives, but everyone has one goal or one thing in common, and then that's that they're working on really interesting challenges and problems and using technology and innovation to tackle them. And today's no different. As I mentioned, we're so thrilled, and thank you to Doug at the City of Dublin who helped put this together and the great work there. Dublin's really been a fascinating place and city to follow on the technology and innovation front. And for those that are joining us today from other parts of Ohio, not from Central Ohio, Dublin is certainly a city to watch and keep an eye out for. Before we get too deep into it, I want to thank HMB, which is our tour sponsor. And it is helps mid-market companies and governments innovate and grow using cloud platforms and automation. HMB believes you don't have to have a bottomless IT budget to reach your full potential. For more information on HMB, please visit their website at hmbnet.com. Thank you to HMB. They've made this entire tour series possible, and we're really excited to have their support and so many folks from around the state on with us today. As we begin, I'll do a quick introduction of each of our guest panelists. After I do the quick intro, I'll pause and ask each of them to say something and share who they are and what their work is. And so those attending will be able to get the perspective and as they're talking to hear what they've, where they're coming from and what their companies and organizations. Kai Mao is Distinguished Strategic Solutions Planner at Fujitsu Network Communications. He is responsible for developing and executing their long-term 5G ecosystem strategy. And working with the City of Dublin, he is the lead who has worked with Doug and Dublin on a smart parking proof of concept in Dublin. Kai, thank you so much for joining, and really looking forward to hearing what you're working on with Doug in the city.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, it's been our privilege to work with Doug in the City of Dublin. It's they're a very forward-thinking and innovative city to municipality to work with, and we appreciate the opportunity. And hopefully that we can add more value to their ecosystem as we go forward.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Looking forward to hearing some of that, some more of the work on the smart parking that you all been working on. But next up is Patrick Soler, who is General Manager at Alten Engineering Services. They are an innovative engineering solutions and services provider. Their workforce of over 30,000 engineers across 22 countries aligns them as a leader in intelligent transportation systems with the resources to actualize and articulate a vision for smart mobility. They have been intimately involved in the 33 Smart Mobility Corridor and have many significant innovations that they're bringing to projects, not just in Dublin, but across the world. Patrick, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Chris. Yeah, we've been fortunate to be selected as part of the project management team for the Route 33 corridor. It's a smart corridor that is focused on connected and autonomous vehicles. And we're putting in roadside units and going to be testing a heavy concentration of connected vehicles within the Dublin area as well as Marysville. And it's one of the only public proving grounds to be certified throughout the world to test connected vehicles. It's a 35-mile stretch of fiber optic cable that goes from Dublin all the way out to the Transportation Research Center.
Thank you, Patrick. Looking forward to hearing more about some of that work in a little bit. But next up is Peter Coratola, who is founder and owner of Ease Logistics. Ease is a third-party logistics company providing services to automotive, aerospace, and food and beverage companies. They'll be one of the first companies to work directly with Connected Dublin on connected vehicle testing, as well as some of the other innovations. In addition to being a graduate of The Ohio State University, Peter's born and raised in Dublin, where he currently resides with his family. So thank you, Peter, for being here.
Thank you, Chris. Yep, it's been a great experience working with Doug at the City of Dublin on some of these new initiatives we're working on in the smart mobility corridor. Sounds like a lot is similar to what Patrick's doing. We're working with the city in terms of getting some onboard units for data access into commercial fleets, as well as the initial stages of having the first autonomous truck powered by a local company using the smart mobility corridor.
Wonderful. Thank you, Peter. Looking forward to hearing more about that as well. Last and certainly not least is Doug McCollough, who is Chief Information Officer at the City of Dublin. Doug, as the CIO, leads initiatives in IT innovation, digital experience, smart cities, broadband, intelligent communities, and blockchain. He's a graduate of the University of Toledo and has his MBA from Notre Dame. And as the other three gentlemen have described, a ton of interesting work happening at the City of Dublin, which Doug has been a big leader on, both within the city and then just in smart cities and smart government, with his thought leadership all over. And he's a great follow on LinkedIn and some other places, posting some interesting content. But Doug, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for coming to Dublin. And on behalf of the City of Dublin, welcome. Welcome to everyone who's listening who's not in Dublin. I'm excited today because we get to showcase some of what we do, just a small part of what we do. But what you just heard is a big part of that, working with companies. That's a big part of our strategy in the City of Dublin, starting with a foundation of broadband and fiber optic cable, and moving into what kind of partnerships and what kind of innovation can we do. We recognize that we're never going to be resourced high enough to do the really big things and the really innovative things. But when we partner with companies that want to do it, we make the road a little bit smoother for them, and all of us wind up with much better innovation. So I have the advantage of working with all three of the other panelists. They haven't known each other before and don't see the full picture like I'm able to see, but I'm really excited about what we're doing in Dublin and also what we're doing in Ohio. So hats off to you for showcasing our great state. And you're probably one of the few people who knows just what an amount of amazing things we're doing all over the state. So it's great to be here showcasing with you.
Well, thank you, Doug. And I think that's a good place for us to start of. Maybe if you wouldn't could walk us through very high level of just what the city is working on, what you're working on, but also how did that come to be? Because it takes real leadership to do some of these projects and be a leader with technology, because government, and I've spent years in government as well, it can sometimes, it takes a while, and there's sometimes that reputation of being slower than the private sector, but Dublin isn't just leading in central Ohio or Ohio. It's some of the work it's doing is leading internationally and across the United States. And so, Doug, curious of how that came about and what that's looking like today.
Sure. So it's interesting. First of all, we have some official programs, some specific things that we are doing that are budgeted and staffed and those kinds of things. And you've heard a bit about them here. But I really want to make sure we plant a flag and talk about the 33 Smart Mobility Corridor, which is being rebranded into the Beta District. And that project is a joint venture through a council of governments, including the City of Marysville, Union County, the Union County Port Authority, and the City of Dublin. Other partners are going to include Alten, as Patrick has mentioned, and Transportation Research Center, the Ohio State University Center for Automotive Research, the state of Ohio with Drive Ohio, and really the state and we as a local community have planted a flag, not just in smart cities, but specifically to say that smart mobility is a research area that if you can get ahead of it, you can really lead in the state and in the world. And so we really are trying to put ourselves out there specific to that. I want to talk just a little bit, though, answering your question about how did we get here. As a smart city and an intelligent community, the City of Dublin started with a foundation of broadband. And we did that before it was in vogue to do it. We invested and own a fiber network that forms the foundation for a whole bunch of other things that we're doing. And so all of our smart city goals and our intelligent community goals start with that foundation. And when smart cities started to become kind of a buzzword, we jumped in with both feet and really started looking at devices and IoT and data analytics and artificial intelligence, all the things that go into a smart city, better decision making, and those kinds of things. Then we started with our strategy of realizing that we were not going to be able to just build it by ourselves. City of Dublin is blessed with an extraordinary amount of corporate citizens and companies. We have certain headquarters here, the Wendy's company, Cardinal Health comes to mind, and a lot of executives and a lot of engineers and technologists happen to live and work here. And so we have taken advantage of that. And instead of just allowing people to just be here, we've tapped into those resources and really asked the community, what can we do? And what we've come up with is this kind of thing. I want to say one more thing. We are a big proponent of the Intelligent Community Forum, and the City of Dublin formed the Global Institute for the Study of the Intelligent Community. And we do some similar things that you do, Chris, and going to different regions in Ohio and cataloging many of those best practices that other communities are doing and then sharing them with other places around the world. So we found that being a sharer is really key. When you learn something and you share it with somebody else, you become a conduit. You become a nexus point in a network. And that's kind of our strategy here in Dublin.
That's great. Thank you, Doug. And Patrick, I think this is a good opportunity. And
Yeah.
Doug, you had mentioned the 33 Smart Mobility Corridor. And so, Patrick, maybe you could just describe for maybe those that aren't as familiar or don't live in Central Ohio, just at a high level, what it is, but then also what you and your company are working on it. And I know you're doing work like this, not just in this one area or region, but all over with innovation in this space. So curious as to what you're working on.
Well, as Doug mentioned, this area is really very unique. It's created not only the infrastructure, but the ecosystem of partnerships that we have and the types of companies that are here and the workforce that's here. And because of that, we were able to win not only the Smart City grant for Columbus, but also a grant to pay for the infrastructure along the Route 33 corridor. And that 35-mile stretch goes from Dublin and Metro Place, where our office is located, in a data center that's here, all the way out through Marysville and past Honda to the Transportation Research Center, which is the largest proving ground in the United States for automotive testing. And one of the advantages there is we're going from an urban to an ex-urban through a rural area through a city that allows us to test autonomous and connected vehicles. And for that, we needed a high-speed internet connection so that we can transmit safety messages back and forth between vehicles and to the infrastructure. And that infrastructure can be your traffic signals, or it can be, to the city monitoring system. And what we've been able to do is put in roadside units that are transmitting radio messages. They're every 600 meters along Route 33 on the highway, plus all the intersections that are in Marysville and about 10 intersections in Dublin. And those allow vehicles that have an onboard unit to recognize that maybe there's someone that's going to run a red light coming in the other direction and warn you to stop. Or it might, from a traffic standpoint, relieve congestion because there's more cars coming from one direction than the other, and the light will change green to allow for that congestion. But then also safety types of applications, like if there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk and you're making a right-hand turn so you don't hit those, or if there's an emergency vehicle coming. So with Drive Ohio and all the research partners that we have and this council of governments that we've created, we're able to start testing all of these applications along the Route 33 corridor. And it's not just automotive testing, it's truck testing, Class 8 vehicles. But now we're also been certified to start testing drones and unmanned aerial vehicles too.
That's great, Patrick. Thank you. And Doug, I guess two questions, one question and then one pivot. For the question being, what does having this smart mobility corridor mean to Dublin, mean to Ohio? And what are some of those, why is it important that we have this, and is it that we're able to lead on these types of issues? And then something that you had shared is Connected Dublin. Just what that is, because I know some of the work Peter and his team are doing is along that. So I guess to start of, what does having this smart mobility corridor mean for the area?
Thanks for that question. And I get to be biased with these questions, so I get to share my bias. And so I'm fully biased right now. I believe that a lot of the development and innovation that we're doing right now and are going to be doing for a very long time will be digital. We are digitalizing our existence, our communities, our cities, our road systems, our economy. Everything is being made digital. And the innovation of that, the companies that are going to do things where that's concerned, they're going to pick a location. And so it's very important for Ohio to plant a flag, especially with our past. We have been a manufacturing center. We have been a steel and a coal, and some people would use the term Rust Belt. It's kind of pejorative, but we have been that and have led where that's concerned. We've got to diversify our economy so that we are more digital. And so that's a part of what this means. Naming the 33 Smart Mobility Corridor is a catalyst, a seed from which the rest of the state really can plant a flag and say, we recognize that automotive and really mobility, we should use that term, then I'm using that for smart mobility. These innovations are critical to what the future kind of looks like. And companies, startups, big companies, research institutions, universities are going to make those things happen. So in addition to the beta district, the 33 Smart Mobility Corridor, being a branded space that goes out to other states, other countries, and says, hey, if you want to test something, here's where the knowledge workforce is. Here's where the great research university is. Here's where the supercomputer and the roads and the weather and seasons is. Come here and do your work. That's pure economic development. So the City of Dublin then looked at that and said, for our Smart City initiative, we don't want to just be Smart City X. Every city really needs to go through this process and be a smart city. What is our unique value proposition to the world, including our own residents and businesses? And that's where we came up with Connected Dublin, which rises actually above just technology. When we say connected, right on time, I think, we are really talking about human-to-human connection as well. So we start with internet connectivity and saying everyone needs to be connected, but then our roadways and our economy, our businesses, our residents, our schools, all need to be connected, both with their government and with each other. So Connected Dublin kind of delves into those areas as well. And we feel like in the future, the technical part of this is going to fade back in importance, and we won't think about it, just as we don't think about cars now. And we will just think about our experiences, and that's what we're trying to showcase when we use the term Connected Dublin.
That's great. Thank you, Doug. And Peter, I know your company's doing some work in this, but to Doug's a point a minute or two ago of planting that flag and showing that this is a place for technology companies and businesses to move and be built. You're someone that's built a business in the Dublin area, and you're working on some of these leading technology issues. So I'm sure, want to hear your perspective both on the opportunity for more business creation, but then two, what is some of the work that Ease is doing within this realm?
Sure. I think it's important to note that Doug's has been instrumental in really getting traction with the smart corridor, the smart mobility platform. He has an uncanny, ability to see not only through the tech side that's intriguing to a lot of businesses, but also there's a business side to this tech platform that has to exist to get business buy-in, but not only business buy-in, but community buy-in. The platforms are great for testing grounds, but there's got to be that business buy-in that generates something that really makes it tangible and feasible to get traction enough to stick around and really do what it's supposed to. So there's been a lot of traction because since Doug has really taken over this, so it's been great working with him. I just think that's definitely worth mentioning. From a business standpoint, or owning a business in Dublin, that has been such a great additional factor with when you're working with a city and then someone like Doug that has the platform to be able to work with us and do these, try these new things. And the city's not just giving you the ability to do it, but they're also providing resources and strategically sitting down and working with you. It's very intriguing and it's very attractive for a business owner because these are new potential revenue streams that we may have never got into if we were too far out of this realm. When you're talking about the presence that Ohio, but Dublin has in terms of the businesses that are here, and now we have this platform, then you bring in the factor that within 600 miles we're within 60% of the population. This is a great testing ground for companies to come here, be in a competitive nature with other businesses where we're challenging each other to get better and push the limits, and then be able to operationalize it at a national level. I mean, there's not really other better testing grounds geographically than where we are right here. Some of the things we're working on is an autonomous truck that we use a smart 33 corridor to hopefully service customers on the 33 route, which we do now with our drivers, but kind of have that first step into something tangible that the city, the community can feel and see that is really out, that is showing, wow, what the smart 33 corridor is doing and what Dublin is doing to help businesses. I think that's going to be very exciting for us. Then also getting in some of these single point transmitters on commercial vehicles to track patterns like what Pat was talking about, putting trucks out on the road and less volume of commuters and running routes where they would be more conducive to gasoline or diesel costs. When you're talking about now we're impacting supply chain and being more cost effective just because we're able to be in Dublin and plug into this network. It's very attractive to not just us, but larger companies, manufacturing companies that may have never really considered Dublin. So being able to work with Dublin in this kind of preliminary or infant stage and watching it grow and sitting in a room with Doug and saying, let's try this. And Doug might, you can see Doug's very forward. Doug will say no a lot, which is great. You know what I mean? No gets as much traction as yes. But it's been great working with them because we're able to bring these ideas and the city is behind us when we're trying to execute. So like I said, we're excited to get the ground or moving on this autonomous truck. And then obviously I think we're planning to deploy some of these units on some of our trailers right now in the next couple of months. And that's really, I can tell you, just from what we've got going on, it's just the tip of the iceberg because there's a lot of traction here and it's getting a lot of attention, both internally at Ease and with our customers and from a community aspect.
Can I tag in on that, Chris? I just want to, if I could, give Peter an opportunity also. I made the mistake of thinking I really knew what I was talking about with the concept of logistics. And in my pea-brain, I have thought, this is moving things from location A to location B. But I've talked to Peter about really almost being a data and analytics company. And the logistics is really just the form factor. And why Dublin formed such a great location for them is not only because of its location in Ohio, which is a great logistics location in general, but then also that proximity to technology workers and those kinds of things. Peter, can you just mention kind of what Ease does, which is more than another logistics company might do?
Right. So, logistics companies get a lot, on face value, it's not as, as sexy, quote unquote, as those IT companies out there. Yeah, it's the brick and mortar trucks, and trailers, but there's a heavy investment and huge side of our business that's tech driven. The smarter we are, the more analytics we have, the more data we have into geographic areas, from capacity, driver capacity, weather patterns, traffic patterns. It makes us smarter, which makes our customers be able to service our customers more. When you start talking about the available data tracking, when you're looking at these smart corridors, you can go, as Doug probably can tell you, you can go into a wormhole of how many problems it can solve. Like I was mentioning earlier, route optimization, delivering in non-high value times for commuters. When you do stuff like that, you're appeasing the community at a commuter standpoint. Less semis on the road when they're going to work, less semis when they're going out to dinner. When you start combining all these factors and applying it to supply chain, your customer base or companies that are in this corridor are able to cut costs on things that are 3-4 arms lengths away from actual transportation. But just because we're using the data that's out there and we're delivering at a different, we're delivering at 1 a.m. instead of 11 p.m. Times that by how many truckloads are delivering each, down the corridor, the value of this data and the value to plug into it and use it correctly, it's endless. So it's not just logistics and trucking. There's a heavy emphasis on our side of the data analytics of plugging into this and being able to make, present this information, utilize this information in a way that's both conducive for our routing and our customers' routing.
Thank you, Peter. And shifting gears a bit, this is something for Kai and Doug. Just in late July, there was an announcement and press release that went out about some of Fujitsu building smart city infrastructure for Dublin. And this was, I think, specifically for the smart parking pilot application for citizens of Dublin. And this trial, which is part of the broader Connected Dublin initiative, which we've just heard about, aims to improve local business and success and lower carbon emissions by measuring and analyzing parking patterns and making those insights visible to community leaders and residents. And so maybe we can start with you, Doug, of just what this is, what you all at Dublin were thinking and doing this, and then Kai, some of your work and expertise that had gone into this project, and what do we have to look forward to from this type of work moving forward?
Thanks. So when we think about Peter and Ease Logistics, we have an example of growing a Dublin-based company. But our objective also is looking out to the world. You all know Fujitsu is an enormous global company, and they have major operations all over the United States. Why would they come to Dublin, Ohio to do something? And we had sort of the conditions to co-create some things. When Kai and I first started working together, we didn't have a concrete idea of what we wanted to do. We had some technologies, we had some locations, and we co-created much of this stuff. What I love about this smart parking concept is that it's a tiny little thing in the grand scale of things, but it incorporates 5 or 6 really different technologies, all of them utilizes to their fullest. It incorporates fiber, as well as incorporating 5G, as well as incorporating edge compute, as well as incorporating camera-based analytics and some machine learning, all in a single project. It's very scalable, and it fits within what City of Dublin was able to do. True to what others have talked about in terms of the real objectives of some of this smart stuff, if you can tell someone how many parking spaces are available before they get to town and optimize their route, you're going to reduce traffic, you're going to reduce fuel consumption, and you're going to make a person happy because they're not circling and looking for traffic. That's the basis for a lot of different smart parking applications. But we've also had conversations about what does this mean to city leaders when you can gather the data about parking patterns and make decisions and policies about it, and what does it mean to businesses? And that's why we did this in the historic Dublin area, where a lot of our retail and dining and tourist attractions are. That's where people are walking. And what do our business community need to know about foot traffic that we can help them learn through a smart parking application? So I'll pause there and let Kai talk from his perspective about it, but it has been really enlightening for us and how you can grow a smart city. It just doesn't drop down on top of the city fully formed. It takes partnerships like what we have here.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. Yeah, so you touched on it exactly. So the smart parking application is really just the tip of the iceberg. We do have a very interesting technology base, and the idea was with this pilot was to utilize a use case such as smart parking that utilized various aspects of the network and connectivity and digitalization requirements. If you look at smart parking applications today, it's essentially taking a video stream and processing it in a data center and then disseminating the information in a usable fashion for a user. What we do to optimize that is that, as you said, we used edge computing with artificial intelligence driven analytics at the edge to reduce the video stream content back to the core data center. So you have more optimized transport and you have real-time processing on site. So, and we are able to do this across the entire network and manage that. And with that platform, we can then support other applications. So we chose, together the smart parking application to demonstrate value to the city, as well as the value of the platform, and also utilizing that as a stepping stone for possible other future applications.
If I could follow up on that with another question there, one of the things that attracted us to kind of this platform is we are also going from having a very robust network, robust fiber network, broadband network, to having an autonomous network. And these are some of the things that you can't see in a city unless you really pulled the covers back a little bit. Autonomous networking for us is an opportunity to add more resilience into our network, potentially making it possible to do life safety kinds of applications. We don't do that on the network right now. As has been said with smart mobility, braking, like hitting the brakes, that requires a low level of low latency and reliability that even a great fiber network doesn't necessarily have. But in working with Fujitsu, we are being introduced to this autonomous networking concept. And I wonder, Kai, if you want to say anything about that.
Sure. So we are, as a next step, we've been working with the City of Dublin on what kind of consider a phase 2 of the pilot, where we're adding in the autonomous capabilities or autonomous control capabilities into the network platform that we're developing. So today we do end-to-end system automated configuration across the transport and wireless and virtual resources. Something that we're adding in this next phase is the capability to have an intelligent control system and feedback loop for a ultra reliable system. So if you look at the new generation of use cases, historically it's been mostly around mobile broadband, right? Broadband connectivity, higher speeds. But with the new generation of use cases, we're seeing requirements for lower latency, higher reliability, large number of connections. Those are really the new keystones for new applications. The platform, adding in the autonomous reliability to it, allows us to be able to automatically detect failures in the network and respond to those failures and readjust the network to maintain the service. So in the example of autonomous vehicles, you need an ultra reliable network to be able to process those, because you don't want the network to shut down at a key moment in a traffic situation. So, like I said, that this pilot was meant to start the process with the City of Dublin, and we're really just only beginning this. So, our phase 2 that Doug has been working on is to start looking at the ultra reliable support in use cases for that, and we'll be continuing to develop that.
Thank you for that. And one question, and I think this, I would enjoy everyone's perspective, because I think it comes from different, Patrick and Kai, they come from companies that are doing this type of innovative work across the country. Peter will come from this he's built a company, and you mentioned it's not an IT company, but even a logistics company can use some of this tech and innovation to really move things forward. And then Doug, as a leader within a city government itself. But kind of as I was listening to all this, so much of it makes sense for governments of all shapes and sizes to be doing projects like this. But Dublin is a leader where not all governments are doing things like this. So what would messages be to either residents, or if a mayor or someone like that is listening in, about how a city could start down this path? And the smart parking was, Doug, as you mentioned, it's not a massive thing in and of itself, but it's part of dropping different things in and doing it through, building it brick by brick. So I guess we could start with you, Doug, of what you would tell your colleagues and other governments and across Ohio, across the United States or beyond, how they can start down this path, and what the benefits are for taxpayers.
I do talk to colleagues a lot, and I do want to be careful because, local government is hard, and it is a rare local government that can hire a CIO and task them with actually building these relationships. When you looked at what we were doing 5 years ago, you would question and say, well, why are we doing this panel discussion? Why are we doing relationship development with Fujitsu? What does that have to do with local government? But if you ask that same local government to develop a 5G strategy, often they are not in a position to do it because they do not have a partnership with someone like Fujitsu to have that discussion. So I would say that you have to carve out actual time and money to begin the development of some of these things. Relationships are important, and to cluster and share with each other. But I recognize that most local governments are not in a position to do this in a big way, but it can be done in a small way. Everybody doesn't have to be Dublin. Dublin has positioned itself to occupy a certain space in Ohio, but everyone can improve. And I would say much of our work with the Intelligent Community Forum, for which, by the way, we are having a major global summit that the City of Dublin is hosting, in which communities can come together and have that very discussion as to, hey, you're a community in Taiwan, or you're a community in Northern Europe, or you're a community in South America, but local government is almost the same everywhere. So I would say, sharing best practices with each other is a good way of learning how to invest. And I would say that our residents in Dublin are very supportive, not just kind of supportive, but they're vocal about saying, I love what you're doing, please keep doing it. Most local governments, what they hear from their constituents is, I hate what you're doing, and no matter what you do, I'm always going to hate it. So I would say to residents, be more of an encourager and give people a little wiggle room, a little space to experiment. That's key.
Thanks, Doug. And Peter, I think, because Doug, you're absolutely right. Not all, especially local governments, have resources to do some of these things. But with that said, Peter, your story of building a company and employing residents of Dublin and Ohioans, those are successes that every local government wants, and it's through some of this innovative forward thinking, I'm sure, that has made Dublin a great place for you to do business. So maybe you could talk about it from the private sector and job creation and growth, and what that means, and why governments should be mindful of some of this.
Right, and what Doug said, respect to not all communities are able to do it at full scale. But you got to start. You got to start somewhere, and engaging with neighboring communities that might be doing it or thinking about doing it. You know, communities that are doing it want more buy-in from not only their community, but local communities. The more buy-in that we have on a global scale around us, the stronger we're going to become, you know? So you got to commit from the private sector. When you're looking at what am I attracted to when looking where to run the company, right? Tax abatements are great, don't get me wrong, you know, but you can only go so far. When you're talking about platforms to springboard your company into the next realm or into the tech future, you can't put really a dollar amount on that, right? That's a huge single investment for us to do it standalone, but to be able to go into a city and operate in a city and use that platform, it's a huge springboard for us. That's very attractive for us to want to be here. In terms of securing that and relating that to, you know, attracting people into our business, it goes hand in hand. Ease has been successful because of the ability to capitalize on opportunities. The opportunity Dublin is providing for us to be part of this platform is attracting people into our company that may have not wanted to be, you know, in logistics. They may have not considered transportation, but now when we're looking at, you know, people that can code or IT, development, because we're engaging in this and we see the future, we're attracting a whole different type of person that may have never been attracted to logistics. Now they want to be here because now they're seeing that it's not just Ease Logistics doing this, but it's being a part of Dublin and there's a community involvement. So to the governments out there, that you just got to start. You know, I don't believe there's going to be a day in the near future where someone's going to come and say, hey, now's the time, let's do it. Let's lay that fiber. You gotta take the first step and engage. And if you can't, if the local city doesn't have the funds to do it, engage with neighboring ones or engage with if they're not neighboring, because the more buy-in that we have, I'm sure Doug would, stand by it. We want other cities that want to plug into our corridor. We want to have that buy-in too, because it makes us stronger. So you just got to take that first step, because it is very attractive, especially in this day and age with everybody going remote, with all this supply chain disruption, with all the, essential, non-essential business and operational flows that have to now adapt to the current situations. Smart platforms really give you the ability, when you're talking about, very high redundancy and no downtime, they're attractive to businesses.
Thank you, Peter. Patrick, please.
Yeah, and I would also echo that. I think that one of the things that enabled us to have so much success in this area is really the not only the public-private partnerships that allowed the community to come together, but then also the Council of Governments that have been created. And that Council of Governments could be, Dublin and Marysville and Union County, but it can also be within your local area. It can be the city government along with the schools and maybe one other municipality. So those types of synergies are really important. And one of the smart things that, this area did was take an inventory of what assets they have and realize that smart mobility was one of the assets that they had and that they should build an identity around. So a lot of communities can approach it from that perspective.
Kai, anything from your end?
Yeah, so actually when we first started looking at potential municipal partners for possible pilot activities and trials, we met with many different cities throughout the US. And what we found that was different for the city of Dublin was the fact that they had an end goal plan. Most cities have an economic development goal, but I think City of Dublin's true goal is to enable citizen and business experience. And the way to enable that was through economic development. And the way to enable economic development was to enable more digitalization capabilities within the city infrastructure. So that's where we get into projects like the smart mobility use cases, and also the smart parking application that we're working on as well, is to add value to the city so that the user experience is enhanced and therefore raises the living standards of the city itself, right? We measure normally living standards by, quality of life in terms of home and salary, so on. But there's other aspects moving forward in terms of, having a smart city infrastructure, smart mobility applications, and so on, help the average person be able to have a more productive lifestyle, a more easy lifestyle. I'll give one example, and this is City of Dubai, for example, actually had the same goal as City of Dublin, and they're a very innovative city in a global sense, is they want to digitize their entire city services. The idea was that no person ever needed to step foot into a municipal office anymore to do any city service. Everything could be done online and could be done through one portal. So they linked all of their city databases from their license registration to permitting. And if you do one thing here, it trickles all the way through. That may not be measurable in terms of a salary or living condition, but it certainly improves your quality of life. You don't have to sit 3 hours at the DMV. I think the City of Dublin has the same goal in terms of enabling digitalization, and the smart mobility is one aspect of that. And they're having that goal was very important in us working with City of Dublin. We met with many other cities that had, a high level goal, but really didn't understand or didn't have a vision on how they would want to execute that.
Yeah, and I would just tag in on that, Chris, that there is a network effect here. And if all three of these gentlemen were gone, I could put 3 more companies in here and do another panel. And we could get rid of them and we put 3 more in. And that's the point, that nobody is going it alone or being the only innovator. Eventually, you start to get 9, 10, 12, 15 companies or initiatives going, and folks start to say, well, if we're going to experiment somewhere, let's go somewhere where a lot of this activity is already going on, because it makes the innovation smoother and that kind of thing. So I just want to make sure I put that out there, because I hope that companies and universities and knowledge workers will have relationships with each other as well. You've got to light that fire in your community.
Absolutely. And I think that goes to Peter's point of just start. And it doesn't have to be the biggest thing in the world, but just taking that first step, because that day where, it's going to get handed to you, or there's just something that's going to say, okay, you got to do it. It's not coming. And, to have the City of Dublin in the same conversation as the, City of Dubai, that's really something. And that's an amazing thing of itself. But we have just a few more minutes before we hit the end at the top of the hour. We'll finish with 2 around the horn questions that we like to do as part of this series. And so the first one, and we'll go Patrick, Peter, Kai, Doug. But the first one is where to go in Dublin. It can be restaurant, it can be park or outdoor activity, it can be wherever. But if someone's passing through, family's coming in town, what's your favorite place in town?
My favorite place and go-to restaurant is J. Lou's. I like starting on this side of the river in Dublin and then crossing over the bridge to Bridge Park.
Peter? Peter, you're on mute.
Sorry. When you come to Dublin, you definitely got to check out the Field of Cement Corn. That's a must. And then, like Pat said, going down to the Dublin district, all the restaurants are great down there, and it's, park the car and walk the rest of the night.
Great. Kai?
Oh, I'm not a native of Ohio, but I have visited Dublin with this project many, many times. And I would say that the New Riverside area is probably a good area to go. Lots of restaurants, lots of cultural activities there. And I think that it's representative of the growth in the City of Dublin. So it's a good place to bring new people to. And actually, that's where they took me for lunch.
Yeah, and I would say that Dublin has great public art. So Peter took it from me, but I was going to say the Field of Corn, the cement Field of Corn, but also the Dancing Hares. And there's just public art all over. Chief Leatherlips, there's an amazing indigenous history to Dublin. and this part of Ohio, and it'd be very interesting to go see that. And then also our new pedestrian bridge is an interesting architectural wonder. It's getting a lot of attention around the world, so I definitely think people should go see that.
That's great. And then our last one, we'll do the same order again, where Doug, you can finish it up and any final thoughts. But it can be a prediction for Dublin. It can be a prediction for smart mobility topics we've been talking about today, or the future of cities, but just something a bit future casting that you want to kind of put on people's radar that they can keep an eye out for. And we'll go with you, Patrick.
Well, I think what you'll see in Dublin and as well as Columbus is the incorporation of more smart corridors. It's going to relieve congestion, but I think it's also going to create a much higher standard of living for everyone, where they create a closer community and the ability for multimodal transportation, whether that's walking or bicycling or car or bus. I think you're going to see that a lot more in many areas.
Thank you. Peter?
Well, I hate to, burst people's, bubbles on this one. I think we're very far away from the fully autonomous supply chain and trucks taking over the transportation network of the United States or, globally. I do think it's on the radar, but I think that the biggest thing we're going to see, including with tech and innovation tied to logistics, is as these smart quarters or smart cities start to pop up more, we're going to see a huge decrease in accidents pertaining to commercial vehicles in terms of community safety. I think the data with the weather analytics and traffic analytics and high times and low times are going to directly impact the safety of the commuters in those neighborhoods and neighboring communities. I think that's something that is a huge and obviously a great impact that tech's going to have in the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Peter. Kai?
So yes, I think you can expect more of the same innovation that's occurring. As I stated before, we're only at the tip of the iceberg in terms of the different digital applications that can be enabled through smart mobility infrastructure and so on. I also think that what's going to happen is that with all of the different initiatives that City of Dublin is running, you're going to see a point where they're going to start to converge. So right now you've got these isolated use cases independently being tried. Eventually they will come together into a unified solution that has an overall benefit and synergy to the general populace. So I think that point is going to come across within the next year or so. And we, Fujitsu, look forward to working with City of Dublin to expand even more digital applications with them.
Great. Thank you, Kai. And Doug, wrap it up as our City of Dublin chief cheerleader.
Yeah, well, so far, for far future, I think we're going to see more technology. I think we're going to see more flying things, more electrification of vehicles, more data, more cameras. We're going to see a lot of those things. And I sign on to what Peter is saying for our hopefulness. We hope for more safety, greater experiences where people can just feel safe and with regard to their technology and the roads and vehicles, but just generally that quality of experience. And then I also hope and believe that we're going to see a fading back of the technology. It should be invisible to us. We should not think of it as technology, just like we don't think of a hammer as technology anymore. It was once. We want this stuff to fade back and people to just have experiences, feel confident in their data privacy and confident in their relationship with their community. And that's a great hope that I have for what we're doing. And I also like to thank all of you guys for joining me and helping to tell the story of Dublin. We're really excited, and I think that Dublin's going to be in the center of what we see happening in the future. Our state, Ohio, is going to be in that, and then also our country. So very excited about everything we're seeing.
Well, thank you. And that was a great way to end it. And want to thank Patrick, Peter, Doug, and Kai for being on today, sharing your work, sharing the story of Dublin and some of the technology and innovation that is happening right here in Ohio that as Kai was saying, is also happening in places like Dubai and others. And so this was really fantastic. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this was our 10th and final tech tour stop. So thank you. This was a great one to end with. Want to appreciate everyone who's tuned in, whether this is your first time or you've been to all 10. This has been really great. Want to also thank our tour sponsor, HMB. Their support helped make this entire thing possible. And it being the first time we've done this was really incredible. COVID obviously puts a lot of kind of changed up everyone's plans in certain regards, but I think this really worked out tremendous, where more people from different parts were able to tune in because it was virtual. And that's one of those silver linings of this entire situation that I think we have found. But for more information on them, you can go to hmbnet.com. But finally, for our panelists today, if you want to connect with them, you can go to the OhioX LinkedIn page. Each of them have been tagged in some of our event flyers and promotion if you want to learn more about the businesses that we're on today and what they're working on, or follow along. But to our 4 panelists, thank you, Doug. Thank you for helping organize this. Really appreciate everyone tuning in, and hope you all have a great Wednesday. So thank you very much, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.